Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Dashboard Fridays. I'm Adam from SquaredUp, and today I'm joined by my colleague Bruce. Hey Bruce.
Hey, how you doing?
Very good, thank you. Today we're going to be talking about our updated VMware plugin. I'll bring up your screen share, Bruce, and if you want to just sort of walk us through the plugin. We now have out of box dashboards, so if we could cover those, that would be great. But yeah, over to you.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, I'm going to start with this sample dashboard because it's on the screen. But before we get sort of into the specifics, it's worth saying that obviously VMware is on-prem. So this solution requires the relay agents, which you deploy somewhere in your internal network and point it at cloud, and it would pull out information relating to vSphere. On the settings, essentially, we have got somewhere in here. Let me just find, there's too many in this environment. Let me just find it. There we go. And we're on V2 of the plugin now, which has some cool new changes from the first time you may have seen this. It's really simple to set up. You essentially put in your server URL, username and password, and set the agent group to use. And that is basically it. It will test to make sure we can actually connect using the credentials provided. And that is it. So then back in the
Just
app itself, we'll go for it.
I was just going to quickly add on there. In that case, there we're using a service account. I'm pretty sure the plugin only
Yeah,
needs sort of read access, like quite a limited
correct.
role, and whatever that user can see in VMware, the plugin will be able to see as well, right?
Spot on. Yeah, all we need is read only. No write is required. Absolutely. And service account is the recommendation. So now going to this dashboard. So this is the first of the three out of the box dashboards on top of course, the additional for all plugins. You get this overview dashboard that shows you number of indexed objects, that kind of thing. And essentially, this is a bit of everything. Ultimately, when we're talking about VMware, we're talking about VMware hosts and virtual machines that are hosted on them, and they're contained within or are part of a cluster. So this dashboard shows kind of a bit of everything. We've got the relationships here. I'll make this a little bit bigger between the cluster and its hosts, so you can kind of see the topology there, which is kind of useful. We have the alarms. These are vCenter's alerts essentially, and good news for our deployment, we have nothing to show here, thankfully. If there were, they would be displayed here. And then we've got the classic CPU metrics, the CPU ready summation, average as a percentage, and memory usage as well. So basically the classic CPU and memory. And then we have a sort of snapshots view, which within the last 24 hours, clearly we've not done any snapshots. If I were to go back in time, we would see some. But the whole idea of this data stream, which is a new one in the V2 of the plugin, is over time you'll want to be snapshotting your VMs, and they are going to be slowly chewing up disk space. And you'll want to make sure that that's under control. Also, in some cases, you'll want to make sure you actually have snapshots periodically taken. So this is great for seeing that. You can obviously display the data in all the various different visualizations that make up the products. We have the host, not the host, the VM health state, which is obviously very important to see whether they're up, whether they're happy. CPU usage by pool and properties of the VMs themselves. These are the vTools versions, which is great for the classic. Do we have outdated vTools on some of our virtual machines? That's the gist of this dashboard. So it's kind of a bit of everything, and it's meant to give you an idea of the sorts of capabilities of the plugin and the platform combined. What do you think, Adam?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, it covers all the classic things for VMware. Back in my sysadmin days, it was always too many snapshots open, nobody looking at the alarms, everything that you rely on having exploded, or a host is over provisioned and it's not able to serve requests and everything falls apart. So yeah, it's great as a sort of a quick summary dashboard. But like you say, these are always sort of inspirational, right? They're supposed to they're supposed to give you a good starting point, but chances are you're
Absolutely.
going to want to change this dashboard, add more to it, take things away, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And there's plenty of options there, which I'll kind of come on to. But next, I think we'll move on to sort of clusters. The clusters dashboard. This is another out of the box dashboard that shows you a bit about the cluster itself. This will take a second to load. So the first obvious one is VMs powered off, which is account. VMs powered on, also account. Really clear then to see what's the total, and of that total, how many are on versus off. Important for the obvious troubleshooting. And then we have essentially memory. and CPU, which are the classic two of the classic three. And then we have latency for our data store. So this is obviously where our VMs live, essentially. So if there's a high amount of latency, that could be indicative of performance issues, which is why that is a very important one to look at. So
Nice.
yeah,
The
basics.
I was gonna say
Yeah.
that host memory graph looks pretty cool. Like you could easily add into this things like vMotion operations, for example. So I would
Mm,
imagine what happened when all those lines sort of came together in the middle is
mhm.
VMware moved a bunch of machines around so that all the hosts are being used to the same level of capacity. One was clearly being used a lot more, one was hardly being used at all, and vMotion has sort of balanced that out through DRS automatically. And again, those metrics are all available in the plugin, so you could put those operations on the dashboard.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's good to see it working rather than the inverse where you've got too much memory being used on a single host. Absolutely correct. All right. Next, moving on to our hosts and guests dashboard. So this one is more focused on the guests than the hosts, essentially. We have some of the same things we've seen on previous dashboards, like power state, for example. And we've got to drill down a bit more information on the VM tools versions. So obviously really good for identifying out-of-date versions. So we have a couple here that are on an out-of-date version. Great for not leaving yourselves open to potential security vulnerabilities. We've got the health of our hosts. We have 3 hosts in our pool here, and the health of our guests. Obvious things. Then we also have our guest VM memory usage. This is really useful for figuring out, is there one guest VM that's just hogging all the memory? Because obviously, as we all know, we over provision the amount of memory, so we allocate more than our host has. And so if we do have a single guest that's using all the memory, we want to know it. And so this is great for seeing that. Any questions? Any comments, Adam?
No, it looks good. Again, it's a nice sort of summary, and if it's going to show you the health as sort of VMware is telling it, that's really cool. Can you drill into those objects? Do you get the full detail if you click on one of those like guests at the top, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we click on one of these guests, you'll get a drill down like this.
I guess if we had other plugins that had data about these, in this case, is servers, right? So there could be
Mm.
any other number of monitoring tools, System Center, anything sort of monitoring these machines. You could correlate that all together and put your VMware metrics alongside your APM metrics, that kind of thing.
Absolutely, the magic of correlated data, essentially from multiple tools, and that's really the value of plugging SquaredUp into all of your tools, essentially, so you get data from all of them.
Yeah, it's
And yeah,
definitely a nice,
so
it's really a nice, like, covering the infrastructure is a really nice addition to any of the application level monitoring you might be doing. So, the Azure plugin or the AWS plugin will complement anything that you're using to monitor the resources in those. And the correlation part's pretty cool.
agreed, totally. Cool. I've got one more thing to show you, which is just the extent of what you can do with this plugin. So I'm
Sure.
going to add a new tile now quickly. And I'm going to, let's use this one, scope to VMware hosts. And we're going to pick on a specific host or unresolved objects. We're going to look at the list of possible data streams. There's plenty of things to choose from, but the one I was going to show you was the properties of host. There are absolutely tons of properties to choose from now, and that's also true of guests as well. Oh, I'm on the wrong place. I need to be on. Let me create a new scope. Let's start there. Sorry about this. Let's have the all objects. That looks more like it. We're going to look at the guests data stream. Virtual machine. And we're going to see it in table view. So we can see all the possible properties, because when you see all the properties, it's really obvious what you can do with such available options. Table view, there we go. So yeah, as you can see, there's absolutely tons of properties available for these VMs. We pull the level 1 and the level 2 metrics now. In our deployment, we haven't got the level 2 metrics active. So there's some where you get metrics that show 0, but that's just because we haven't got them in our lab. But essentially, the vast majority of the metrics that VMware and vCenter are capable of pulling, we now show. So there's some really cool ones in here, like ballooned memory and compressed memory, helping you spot really more complicated problems, like over-provisioned VMs that we were talking about earlier in a more obvious way. There's absolutely tons and tons of properties here. Host memory, heartbeat status, private memory, shared memory, absolutely tons of properties available. So that's what I wanted to show you.
Nice. One of the sort of really, really common things people always ask about when it comes to VMware are things like capacity planning dashboards and that kind of stuff. So being able to sort of put together, summaries from tables like this, so you can see all of your resource usage. You can put metrics alongside it with all the historical data. You could probably come up with something pretty cool.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, the sky's the limit really now.
Nice. Well, thank you very much for that, Bruce. I'll go ahead and wrap us up. It's probably worth saying, if you are trying this plugin at some point and you come up with a really cool dashboard that, it is probably useful to other people, always feel free to get in touch. You can do that through community answers. You can email our support team. But yeah, to get more information about this plugin, if you're not quite ready to try it yet, you can head over to the dashboard gallery. The link's there on the screen, squareup.com/dashboard gallery. But apart from that, just say thanks again to Bruce for joining me today. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. It's great to be here.
Thank you, sir. And we will probably get you back for another one, I'm sure. Some other exciting plugin from the wonderful world of the plugins team.
Almost certainly. There's plenty on the horizon here.
Good stuff. Maybe for the next video, we'll add in the you can also head to feedback.squareup.com if you want to request other plugins to our public sort of plugin roadmap and request board live. So check that out too if you've got other ideas. And Bruce, I'm sure we'll get right on it. But yeah,
absolutely.
That's it for today. Thanks all. See you next time.
Thank you.